If you're a Formula 1 enthusiast, then you're familiar with the evolution of Formula 1 cars over the years. However, some cars in F1 history have been so outlandish that they are still talked about today. From six-wheeled monsters to bizarre aerodynamic designs, these cars push the boundaries of what we thought was possible in racing. We'll be taking a look at some of the most bizarre F1 cars that graced the tracks from the 1960s to the 21st century. Some of these cars were ahead of their time, while others were just plain odd. We'll explore the engineering behind these peculiar designs, as well as the stories behind their creation and ultimate demise. Join us as we count down the top 10 ridiculously weird cars in F1 history and marvel at the creativity and innovation that led to these peculiar yet fascinating racing cars. If you're new here, click the subscribe button and then the bell icon to get instant notifications of new videos. Number 10. Tyrrell P34 1976-77. After having the inspiration for it in 1975, ace designer Derek Gardner toiled away in complete secrecy on the top secret design of Tyrrell Project 34, which later became known as the P34. But ever since it debuted in a Formula 1 race in 1976, the car has become one of the most revered vehicles in the sports annals. This is a direct result of the fact that it has 6 wheels. The concept behind the design was straightforward. 4 front wheels with a smaller diameter would be mounted on rims measuring 10 inches. This resulted in a reduction in drag, which made the vehicle immediately quicker on the straightaways while also maintaining the requisite levels of grip. Jody Scheckter took the checkered flag in the 1976 Swedish Grand Prix at Anderstorp while driving a P34, and the car finished on the podium 14 times over its 2 seasons in Formula 1. Although it had a clever layout, the P34 could never live up to its full potential because Goodyear needed to devote the necessary resources to developing its bespoke front tyres. Additionally, the P34 had erratic handling, which was not helped by the fact that it was possible to lock up the various front wheels independently. In the end, 6-wheelers were prohibited from racing in 1983, although before that, no one else had ever used such a design. Number 9. A Williams FW08B 1982. One more with the 6 wheels, and it's the only vehicle on this list that I've been able to lay my eyes on, and I've done so no less than 3 times. The FW08B is a 6-wheeled car with excellent transmission and a design distinct from the 6-wheeled cars that came before it. It was a 6-wheeled, 4-wheel drive vehicle with ground effect, similar to the 312 T6 in that all of the wheels were the same size and the front wheels, but it featured 2 rows of rear tires, all of which were powered, resulting in a total of 6 wheels. This car restricted the rules to only allow for 4 and 2 driven wheels. It was prohibited before it could ever be utilized in a race because the improvement made to the vehicle was so significant. The gearbox from the Williams FW07D was stolen and used for the Williams FW08B. As far as I know, just one gearbox was ever produced for a 6-wheeled test car. Williams made another 6-wheeled test car in the past called the FW07D. Because the March 2-4-0, which arrived before the Williams FW08B and shared a similar design and layout, was less successful with its gearbox and 4-wheel drive. Number 8. Life L190 1990. This automobile stands out from the others on our list because it was a complete bust in every conceivable respect. Because of the pre-qualifying system that was in place at the time, the Life could not even start a race, and it did not even qualify. Yet in 1990, when everyone else in Formula 1 was using V8s, V10s, V12s, or even a flat 12 engine, Life employed their unique W12 engine, which had 3 banks of 4 cylinders. This engine was cumbersome and underpowered, and the chassis could have been better too. When I say that both the car and the engine were defective, I mean it. The car was typically 20 to 30 seconds below the pace to get out of pre-qualifying, and the best pre-qualifying time was still around another 5 seconds behind the pole position. Number 7. Brabham BT46B 1978. The BT46B, sometimes referred to as the fan car, had a massive fan mounted on the back of the vehicle for cooling. However, the fan's sole purpose was to provide ventilation. It was in no way designed to generate downforce or pull the vehicle towards the ground. The car participated in only one race, the 1978 Swedish Grand Prix, and won by a margin of more than 30 seconds, finishing ahead of every car that wasn't on the podium. After that, it was swiftly made illegal and never used in competition again. Number 6. Ferrari F310 1996. The 1996 Ferrari F1 car, driven by Michael Schumacher, was not one of John Barnard's finest designs. This cumbersome and awkward vehicle appeared like an armchair due to its enormous cockpit side walls, which stood in stark contrast to the more compact design developed by Williams, the company that set the pace. This was due to a mix of factors, including new regulations that required increased headrest protection for the drivers, and Barnard following the lead of aerodynamicist Tony Tyler, who headed up the wind tunnel work. A recent episode of the Race F1 Tech Show featured an explanation from Barnard in which he stated that, following the rules exactly as they were written and making this headrest, he added, "This is giving us better numbers. We went with that result, but he hadn't looked at the airflow into and around the airbox, and what it had done was screw up the airflow into the airbox." If you look at photographs of Schumacher driving the car on the straight, you'll notice that he tilts his head to the side to optimize the airbox flow. Number 5. Williams FW26 2004. Approximately 80% of the FW26 is fine from the front wheels back. It's just a mid-2000s Formula 1 car with a few aerodynamic aids sneaking in, but it mostly looks good at the front. Inclusion may be controversial because it demonstrates that automobiles can be both ostensibly ugly by all design rules and quite cool simultaneously. Instead of fast-moving creatures of the deep like the Ferrari Sharknose, Patrick Head and designer Gavin Fisher have mimicked nature's most blubbery bulk, the walrus. The FW26 had a broadening snout framed by a pair of bright white tusks that performed the function of front wing mounts. A peculiar wavy pattern was also incorporated into the leading edge of the front wing, which didn't help matters at all. Later in the season, a more conventional version was introduced, which caused one difficulty on Toyota's final Williams F1 triumph. Nevertheless, the walrus nose never won, with only 2 podium appearances being produced by its predecessor. Number 3. Ferrari 312T8. The fact that the 312T8 was never produced and, as far as I know, was never intended to be produced is undoubtedly the most remarkable aspect of this model. One photo of it was distributed, most likely to encourage the other teams to investigate the same item and waste their time and resources. I have no idea whether or not this staged image functioned the way they meant it to, but it seemed evident to me that they merely placed some additional tires next to a stationary car on a track. But this was when many people were working on 6-wheeled cars. Number 2. Ferrari 312T6 1977. Another automobile with 6 wheels, and this one had never competed in a race. It was simply incomprehensible. Instead of the massive rear wheels that were commonplace in the period, the 312T6 had 6 wheels that were all the same size. These would have been the equivalent of the vehicle's front wheels. The back wheels were like those of a truck or van. They were simply 2 rear wheels that had been put together. Although this design was quite straightforward, the wheels were too broad to be legal in any circumstance, so I'm not sure what they were thinking in the first place. Number 1. Lotus 56B 1971. Another vehicle with 4-wheel drive, but this one isn't very noteworthy for that feature alone because it was driven by a Pratt & Whitney gas turbine engine and didn't have any gears. For those who need to become more familiar with Pratt & Whitney, they are a company that manufactures aircraft engines. The one pictured here is an F1 car powered by a modified aircraft engine. In 1968, Lotus entered the Indy 500 with their Model 56, and in 1971, they entered the race with their 56B variation. However, none of the 3 cars finished the race, with 2 retiring exceptionally late in the competition. The car qualified for first place in the Indy 500. Regarding Formula 1, 56B entered the race 3 times for the championship and 3 times for the non-championship. However, it did not score a single point and was only classified once. It is incredibly quiet and, of course, has no gears, but it is worth giving a drive to the Lotus 56, which is also one of the cars in Project Cars 2, if you are interested in driving it. This automobile is the strangest vehicle you will ever drive in any video game. Do subscribe to the channel, like the video, share your thoughts and questions in the comment section, and as always, I will see you again very soon.